Today I'm going to show you how I take a big project, trimming out my house, and turn it into an even bigger project by deciding to make all the trim from complete scratch. This red oak tree is a co-dominant trunk, which means that there's two tree trunks growing out of one base of the tree. And because nothing is ever as easy as it should be, my chainsaw, which always starts, decides not to start.
It always starts, what the heck?
After pulling 1,000 times, I swallow my pride and just get to work using the backup saw.
I'm going to use the little saw.
It takes a little bit longer, but the trees come down barely without getting hung up. One of the benefits of making my own lumber is that I can buck the tree into whatever specific lengths I need. This minimizes the waste and labor because I'm not wasting time and energy working with materials that I'm just going to end up scrapping. So the tractor that I'm using was actually my dad's, and he was diagnosed with a terrible illness when I was young, so it sat for years and years without getting used. I fixed it up years ago, got it running well, bought an old loader frame and had to modify it to fit. I welded in new bushings, hydraulic cylinder mounts, installed the new cylinders, hose, valve, and built this pallet fork grapple attachment, and this thing has seriously been one of the most handy things to have, and I love being able to keep something running that was my old man's. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not wasting the treetops. They get hauled up to the house and we'll get cut into firewood to heat my house this winter. Alrighty, it's time for the fun part. Time to fire up the sawmill. It's amazing how much lumber you can get cut on a very budget-friendly sawmill. This thing has paid for itself time and time again. It has a 7 horsepower gas engine that turns a centrifugal clutch, which drives a big bandsaw blade between two big wheels. There's an aluminum tank up top that holds blade lubricant, which turns on and off and pours directly on the blade when I hit the throttle. So just the first log yielded 20 boards 3/4 of an inch thick and 8 inches wide. And after the rest of the logs are milled up, I'm left with this beautiful pile of red oak boards. The problem is that I can't use any of this wood right away because it's soaking wet and it takes about 1 to 2 years to air dry lumber. So let's do something about that and start another giant project to speed up the process. Yup, I'm gonna build a wood kiln in my garage. A little sketchy, maybe, but I'll be careful, I promise. After framing in the door that used to be on the back of my garage, I start framing in some 2x4s, and the kiln is going to be about 6 foot deep, 6 foot tall, and 16 foot wide. And then I'm gonna have a 12-foot door on the front of it. And then I'm just going to sheet the walls with OSB and fill the wall cavities and ceiling with fiberglass insulation. The idea for this one is to basically just build a very well insulated room that I can control the temperature and the humidity with heaters and dehumidifiers. I also add some tarps hanging from the ceilings with holes cut in them. The tarps paired with fans mounted on the back wall will ensure that the warm, dry air continuously circulates through the bunk of lumber. I have 4 250 watt heat lamps that I use as the heat source, and they are controlled by light switches outside the kiln. The heat lamps paired with the dehumidifier can get the kiln up to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. With the bunks of lumber loaded in, I add some weight to keep things from moving too much as the lumber dries out, and throw some doors together with heat rigid insulation and fire it up. After 3 weeks, the lumber is now dry and it's time to move everything into the wood shop. To make the trim, I start by ripping the boards down to size on the table saw and then send them through the planer and get them down to the final thickness. I made a crosscut jig for my cordless circular saw so that I can quickly make a perfect 90-degree cut with no tear out. The zero clearance jig helps prevent tear out on the oak boards. And with boards cut to length, I run the router along the edges that need a radius. And then I spend an eternity sanding. I did buy a nice 3M extract sander, which really helps speed up the process. There'll be a link in the description for this sander if you want to check it out. I'm going to be using Minwax stain, so in order to enhance the color and look, I use Minwax's pre-stained wood conditioner and let it soak in for just a couple minutes and not too much on the red oak because it's so porous. You can have fish eyes if it doesn't all get wiped off or dried out when you apply your stain. For the protective finish, I'm spraying satin lacquer with an HVLP cup gun. These guns are cheap, easy to use, and save so much time. I sprayed 3 coats, sanding between each coat, and I will put a link in the description for an HVLP gun like this one. The internet tells me that your last coat should be the lightest coat, but I found that I like the finish the best when the 3rd coat is relatively heavy. I guess it's just personal preference. There has been so much work involved in this project, and I am very happy with the results so far, and I'm looking forward to getting this stuff installed. To get the install started, I remove the old extension jamb and install sets of screws that are level on the inside of the jamb, and the trim just sets right on these screws. Because the screws are level, I know my trim will be level and plumb. I am doing a stool and apron style, so I have to notch out the piece that will be the stool. The stool is basically the bottom piece in the jamb. I work my way around the jamb, installing the pieces with an 18 gauge brad nail. Well, here it is, the finished product. This project was a tremendous amount of work, but I'm very happy with the result, and I am genuinely curious what people of the internet think of this. So do me a favor, drop a comment. Also, the majority of the tools that were used in this video are linked below. If you enjoy these types of videos, please consider giving me a follow and hit the notification bell so you can get notified whenever I post. I have a lot of huge projects coming up, yes, even bigger than this one, and I'm really excited to share. If you're looking for more detail on how to do each one of these steps, there are additional videos on my channel that give more info. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thank you for watching.